Don't engage alone. We do this together.
Yeah, we got it. We got it. 52 booklet. Somebody clip this. Welcome to Comics League Live. I'm Jared. I'm here with Javen Morris. What's up, dude?
Hey, not much. How are you?
Doing very well. And what's up, Throth? So so what's I'm going kind of back to like my regular format of doing indie interviews, and Jim was nice enough to email me and ask to come on the show. So I was like, oh, what the hell? So to get started off, I normally ask every first time guest. So what got you into comics?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, okay, that's a good question. So I know I told you before that I saw this one cover art in like my middle school art class, and it was a Submariner piece that Michael Turner drew. And before that, I thought that I was like, oh, comics, they're all old school, like they're so outdated, and blah, blah, blah. And then after that, I was like, wow, like this is totally different. Like my perception of, comics and the medium kind of changed after that.
Michael Turner will do that to you.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is totally different.
Yeah.
And, then I started getting into it. And so I will say something I think is kind of peculiar about my story and interest in comics is that I come into it from an artistic perspective primarily. So, which gets kind of weird because I talk to other like comic enthusiasts and they're like, oh, like what stories are your favorite? Who are your favorite characters? And I'm like, oh, I like Mark Silvestri, and I start naming off artists, and I'm like, I just follow like their work because for me, that's what like makes the difference for the medium to like get me entranced in it is the artwork, how it's laid out on the page and how it reads. And so that's kind of what got me into it once I found these artists who were making stuff that resonated with me.
All right, follow-up question. Who are your favorite comic artists?
Okay, good question. So Mark Silvestri is at the top. I know it's there for a lot of people, and for good reason, right? He's amazing. Yeah. Other artists. Oh, I like Mark Schultz. And I don't know if he's as popular as I think he should be, but his work on Xenozoic, I think, is fantastic. I like for people who are like trying to understand. There you go. Jim Lee's amazing too. For people who are trying to understand like black and white composition in comic art, I think his work is fantastic. It's a great example of how to do that, which is a lot of my interest in the medium as well.
Yep, right there.
Yep, that stuff. Yeah, that's what I was like. What? Like we need more books of just this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It looks it's very clean. That's why I like black and white art. It's very clean.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and forgive me, and stop me if I'm just like talking too long. I could like go all day on this.
No, it's all good. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I know that like market-wise, comics are printed in color because they sell better, right? They catch your eye, and they drive sales, and that's what works. But it's like I just still prefer just straight ink work. Like anytime I can find that, it's like that's what I want for comics. And so that's what I've decided to do with this project. And I know that might come back to bite me in the butt, but it's like, man, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it how I want to do it. And that's how I want to do it. So
that's a great idea. What DC actually started doing was they would re-release a few of their books as unwrapped editions. So it's just like Batman Hush and Justice League, but just in terms of art, no color, just the inks and the pencils. And it is unbelievable. Cool. It is so good.
Yeah, I know about a series that I can't remember the name of it now, but they had Mark Silvestri do like a black and white one with the Batman and Joker a few years ago, I believe, and that stuff was awesome. Yeah, I believe that was it.
Yeah, that was dope because it's like Mark Silvestri is one of those artists that previous to that everyone was like, I want this guy to draw Batman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has a kind of feel like his work brings the mood that just fits Batman really well.
Yes, exactly. So Brown Destroyer asks, so who is your favorite manga artist, or if you're in a manga because you like black and white art?
That's a good question. I wish I knew more manga artists. I'm just not as familiar as I should be with who's creating stuff. Like I find just like images every now and again. I'm like, well, that's really amazing, but I've never like chased down their entire line of work, you know. So I'm making a note to look into that too.
My favorite is Jim Lee, and I can actually outline the exact cover that made me a Jim Lee fan. It was this one of Justice League of Superman and Wonder Woman, and just the way it's framed, the way he has them posed in like the sunlight. I think my intro kind of tipped me up that I like this. So there you go. But
that's like, hey, that's familiar.
Yeah. It looks, because the thing about it is that what Jim Lee was talking about when he was drawing that, he's like, I have all these options because they're both superheroes. I could draw them doing anything.
Yeah, like there's no limits.
Yeah, exactly.
which actually makes it more difficult, at least for me, because it's like when you have infinite options, it's impossible to narrow it down, right? So it's tricky.
Because you're like, so there's so much I want to do.
I know, you're like, well, we could do this or this and this, you know.
Yeah, so tell me about Brood Blood.
All right, so Brood Blood, that is my new project. It's going to be a self-published graphic novel that we're running a Kickstarter campaign for. So, there's the website for it. This tells you just a little bit about it. There will be more on the actual campaign page. But I came across this strategy, I guess, for getting books out there. Because I had tried to get a job as a comic artist, and multiple times, and it's so competitive, and everyone tells you it's near impossible, right? Like you have to just be cream of the crop, and I guess I'm not there yet. But I started seeing more and more successes from kickstarted, self-published graphic novels, and so I figured, well, it's a low investment, right? I don't have to dump a ton of money into it to get it started. But you see like Joe Benitez with Lady Mechanica has been kickstarting some of his comics there too. And some other, I think Dark Horse has done a couple. So like if it's working enough for the like bigger indie publishers, it has potential, as well as like there's entrance for me there too. So that's why I decided to.
The thing about crowdfunding, when you really think about it, is that it's like you're guaranteed you have an audience, because like these are the people that like buy the book. So it's a little bit, it's less of a gamble on like the larger publishers like Image and Dark Horse to do this, because they know these people are going to buy the book.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's hard when you're starting from just ground zero. But that's what we've decided to do. So we're doing things like this. And I'm grateful that you're allowing me to come on your show. We can talk about this, because this is really fun, because I don't have many other people that just like spout out information about it. But so this is my baby right now. But so about this story, I guess it's different from mainstream comics. I'm gonna throw that out there at the beginning, in that it's more of like a novel, right? Like a graphic novel. So it's a fantasy thriller in genre. So it's not even like superhero, and I know that's not like unique, but it's enough to be noted. So we follow Jonas, who's a young adult. He's working at the mills. Decides to come back home after one of his family friends finds him and tells him about these murders that have been happening in his hometown, that he thinks are like being led by this one evil bad dude, right? And so he contacts Jonas, and he's like, hey man, you got to get back home. You got to figure this stuff out. And so Jonas goes back home, and our main setting is the city of Skalnia. And it's kind of a medieval version of like a modern city. So we got a ton of people in there. We have some, a magic system that we're going to kind of introduce throughout the story. But we follow him mostly through this like murder investigation, right? We're going to go and look into all these murders and try to find this guy who's, killing these people that are related to his family. And so that's the thing.
So it's kind of like he's hunting Jack the Ripper, kind of, in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a way. It should feel like that, So like it's definitely fantasy, it's definitely medieval-ish, but we're going thriller, and so yeah, serial killer on the loose, we got to find him.
That's cool. Yeah, because here's the thing, a lot of comics don't really necessarily touch on that, so I see what you're saying is different, and it's really that's what I like to see, because so many people are like superheroes. It's just it has to be superheroes, and I'm like, if that works for you, great. But it's like there have been other graphic novel like concepts beyond superheroes. Like Witchblade is not a superhero book.
Yeah.
It's like The Pit is not a superhero book. I'm just like there've been plenty of like great stuff on that.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that got me so much into Mark Silvestri's work was his comic Cyberforce, right? Which he like created and everything. And so I bought all those issues. I've been reading through them like from the beginning, and so it was refreshing. It felt kind of superhero-y. I mean, they're a team and everything, but they're like cyborgs, Yeah. So it was more sci-fi than like fantasy, than superhero, right? And I forgot who it was originally that I read it from. I think it was Scott McCloud. He has some books about the comics medium, and it really made the distinction for me between like the actual medium and the content that's in it. And one thing that like why I appreciate manga so much is because they have all the genres. Like you can find like anything you want in a manga. But pickings in America are more limited, and so like I want to see more different genres, I don't always just want to just follow a superhero. Sometimes I want a mystery, and I want a comic, so this is part to fulfill that.
That could explain why Batman is so popular, because really you could put like any type of story on that one character and it works as a story. But Ruth asks, Ruth asks, can we purchase this item in the UK?
In the UK, yes, it should be available in the UK. We're going mostly the States, Canada, UK, New Zealand. I think Australia is where we're going to be shipping mainly to. And also, I saw the compliment on the cover work. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So, one cool really thing. Good. I don't think. Yeah, thanks. I spent a long time on it, so that helps to hear. We will be having the actual original artwork as rewards. Of course, there's only like 5 that we have. But for people who are like really into art and collecting it, then those will be available at the beginning until they're gone, right?
Okay, so I know to sign up. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if you want the cool stuff, do it now.
Well, the other thing that I really like, and that honestly not a lot of genres do, even superheroes, is the straight up black and white book, which you thing about it, for one, it's cheaper, so that's an advantage of it. Plus,
yeah, that's true.
It looks with the black and white, you can do more with less than you would be able to do with color, because a lot of the times when you have like a lot of like color on a page, it kind of clutters it up. Where with this, it looks like really clean.
Yeah, that's true. So one thing I had to come to grips with when I was formulating the style that this book was actually going to be produced in, was a big thing was color, right? Because like I know it's so influential for sales, and so I was like, okay, well maybe I just put in a little bit. But what I found is that it got too cluttered, because my ink work is like I render everything with the ink work. And so if I were to try to render it with color as well, it looks over rendered. And you're like, well, why did you do all this work? Because like you could take the color out and it looks just fine. But so that there's certain artists who like can do black and white work, and certain artists who just don't have the knack for it. In my mind, they're more like painters, because they think more in color. Like actually like Michael Turner's work.
Mhm.
His line work's amazing, but he doesn't like render out in ink, right? And
Mhm.
so you pair him with a really good colorist, which they have, and his work stands out. But it kind of needs color.
Mhm. Brown Destroyer asked, "Who is your favorite character?" I assume
Mm.
it's on the project on Brood Blood.
Yeah, here, I'll answer both because I think it could go either way. My favorite character. Okay, well, so the main two characters are on the cover, right? There's Jonas there.
Mhm.
She knows the girl there, and there's some of her friends too. So they basically create the investigation team that are
Mhm.
going to go on this adventure, essentially. I think, like, as a character, I enjoy Shino's character.
Mhm.
She's more fun just to read about, right? Those characters, they're just enjoyable to have in the story. So that's why I like her. But Jonas, and I find this with a lot of the main characters I try to write, and I'm not sure if it's a folly or not, but they always start to end up thinking like how I think,
Mhm.
which I think is just a limitation of a writer. But
Yeah.
so I see a lot of like myself in him, but
Mhm.
it's just like this one facet, you know? And
Mhm.
so it's hard to like pick a favorite because I'm like, well, like I can relate to Jonas more, but I
Mhm.
enjoy some of these other characters more.
Sweet.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like the overall story of this book, like what inspired this story in your head?
Let's see. I think it's a difficult question. So,
Mhm.
in an almost roundabout way, I'll say that like good stories, they're made from taking bits and pieces from things and making a combination that's interesting,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so this happened, I mean, over a number of years to get this where it is today. And it started a lot more lighthearted, I guess, and then kind of turned a little bit more dark. Um, but when it really came together was when I started to emulate um, like role playing games, like D&D.
Ah, there you go.
So like we had, I mean, I know about D&D, but I just recently like actually ran through a whole campaign and been
Mhm.
able to like feel how the world is built and how the game is played and these certain structures with like the combat and interactions with characters. And so I was able to learn about kind of stories and how these games are set up. And so I tried to set up my story to feel kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And that's when it really like just took off with a life that I felt like it was ready to share at that point. So this is, I mean, it's kind of like if I were to write a D&D campaign, it would kind of be this.
Which that's actually not a bad idea for any like any writer to do, particularly in this medium, to like do a D&D campaign
Mhm.
to understand world building. I never thought of that. Wow.
Yeah, I was like, they're. I mean, the creators of D&D. I mean, they spent hours and hours just on world building so that would work with the system and that a lot of people would be able to enjoy it.
Mhm.
So I was like, why try to like reinvent the wheel essentially? Like they've made all these things, so why don't I just learn from them and piggyback?
Yeah,
And it
because
seemed to work.
obviously they know
So
what they're doing because
yeah,
everyone still plays D&D. So
yeah,
there you
like it's a
go.
huge game.
Huge, yeah. Which see, here's the thing. My problem is that I try and get into these games, but they're like way too complicated. Like
Oh yeah.
I recently tried to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh, but the problem with it is
Okay.
that you need now a PhD in order to understand all the rules.
Oh my word. Yeah, I remember Yu-Gi-Oh. I tried to play it, but I was still like too young to like really understand it. And
Hmm.
so like I don't think I ever really learned how to play, but I tried, that's for sure.
Back in the day, it was simpler because it was like I summon a monster, I play a trap card, I play a spell card. Now it's like I
Mhm.
summon a spell card, and then I'm going to summon another monster and another monster, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this all in your first turn. So I'm like, what?
It's
It,
got way too much.
yeah, I'm like, stop adding new mechanics. This isn't working.
Uh-huh. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, D&D it's kind of unique in
Hmm.
that it really depends on like the people you play with, right?
Hmm.
So like we got in with like it was like a beginners group and our DM was pretty experienced and he knew kind of how to like ease us into the game. and all the players were pretty new, and so we were all like figuring things out together. And so we could spend a little bit more time like getting explanations on like, wait a second, how does magic work? You know, so that really helped.
It's been forever for us to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, exactly. Brown asks, what instrument do you prefer as an artist? I think it means like a pen.
So like tools.
Pen.
Okay, yeah.
Probably that, or like also, and I'll add this to the question: if you're like more of like a physical artist, like a digital.
Yeah, gotcha. So I have training as both. I did some schooling as a digital artist for concept art, and so like I have a tablet. I do some things with it. So my process now it's kind of a modge podge of everything I've learned. But I did come back to just straight ink drawing because I like the pen, just the feel of the pen. I use a nib pen occasionally, like a Hunt 102 dip pen. That's pretty standard for a lot of comic work. But I do most of mine actually with Micron Tech pens now, because I can control the line a lot more. And when I'm doing stuff like this, like I just need all the control I can get.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And that's also why I do it traditionally, because like no matter how much I practice with the tablet, it just doesn't get like as close to what I want as when I'm like it's a physical pen in my hand. And so I have to.
It's way too many steps too, because you have to hit all these buttons and stuff. It's like, no, I'm just gonna like I'm just gonna use my pen, my actual pen.
Yeah, it makes it a lot simpler. Where it's just like, okay, you get one shot, put down the line. If you messed up, like, okay, fix it in editing or whatever. But so yeah, I prefer microns. But like my process, I do use like 3D software. And I have models of a whole bunch of stuff. And I'll take screenshots of that, drop it in Photoshop, and then print blue lines on a big sheet and then draw on top of that. So like I'm using all the tools that I have available to me to do specific things. But when it comes to like the art on the page, yeah, it's just hand pen drawn.
Yeah. Ruth asks, looking at the book cover, how many hours would it take you to complete the finished product? Oh, jeez.
All right. So that is a good question. And I'll shoot myself in the foot right here. Because I said, like, I prefer, like, just hand to paper, pen drawn. But in order to, like, get this level of production, I'm going to start creating some shortcuts where, like, some of them are going to be digital. But they're all going to be based on like my own hand drawings. So like hatching textures and things, right? They take hours to do by hand, but if I have a couple that I've created and I can drop in, almost like like the Ben-Day dots, Zipatone. There it is, kind of like Zipatone. So this cover, it took me a while because I wanted it to be right. It was probably 18, 20 hours.
Jeez.
So yeah, it was a labor of love. The pages go a little faster because you spend less time on the page. The first one, here's the thing too, is that I'm still learning how to do this technique efficiently. So the first page took me like 16 hours, but then by the time I finished the fourth one, which was enough to like have a preview for it, I could do it in like 10 or 12. So like I'm getting faster. I kind of know what I'm doing now. But they're still gonna take, a long time. My goal is to be able to do one in like a day and a half worth of work.
That makes sense.
So, but I'm accounting for it taking longer because I don't want to disappoint anyone. Be like, oh, it's not done yet. They're like, we paid you,
Brown Destroyer asks, what software do you use for digital art?
Digital. I use Photoshop. I prefer it. I know it's more expensive. But there's some shortcuts that are Photoshop exclusive that I really like, and so I do keep paying for it. If I wasn't, and probably if I was smarter with my money, I would just switch to Clip Studio Paint because it's so similar. I've messed around with it, and you can do pretty much everything else. So yeah, that's what I use. I'm just Photoshop.
Yeah, I use Photoshop for all my thumbnails because the thing is, the good thing about it is that if I have a template, like if I have a thumbnail that works, I just use that and then I just change it for the video. And Photoshop allows me to do that the easiest. So it's really for me. I want to have the least amount of steps possible to make this. So I'm just like, okay, just give me a simple way to do this. And we'll just move on because honestly, here's the thing. Here's what people don't realize. Thumbnails and titles are the longest thing you have to come up with on YouTube. Like,
oh yeah, they make the most difference, you know?
They
like
do.
It's gotta work. Yeah, that's true.
I've had stuff that hasn't done well. I changed the thumbnail. It's like I just uploaded it.
Yeah, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is a video. You're like, come on, it's been so long.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, so that happens, but but I mean,
it's just marketing, right? Just marketing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The thing about the other thing about Photoshop, yeah, it's complicated, but it really depends on what you want to use it for. Because once you memorize all the commands that you use on a daily basis, you're good because it's like you know what to do at that point.
Yeah. There's really like it can do so much, but you only need like 25% to like do what you want. You know, I mean, and just like it was made for photo editing, and now it's like everyone uses it for digital painting. Like, who would have like guessed that when they made it? You know. I want to mention before I completely forget.
Yeah.
But for my 3D stuff, I just use Blender.
Okay.
Because it's free, right? And so I learned on it, and so that's what I use now for that.
So you essentially use that's like get like reference and all that for what you want to do, how you want something to look.
Yeah, so a lot for setting up perspectives actually, and there's other tools to just like make perspective grids, and that are really awesome. But the reason I use Blender is because I guess kind of mistakenly I thought so. Originally, when I first thought up this project, I was going to try to animate it in 3D, like all on my own. And I quickly found out that was an impossibility. I was just like, it's not going to work. Like, I just need to draw this thing. But because of that, I amassed a lot of different 3D models. So I have 3D models of, medieval cities and buildings and cars and people. And so I can like set these up like they're a miniature set almost. So then move my camera around and I can fiddle with the focal length, like I'm a photographer, and get like the shot just right. So the composition is there, and I know it works with perspective. And so I don't have to draw out a grid every single panel. I just take a snapshot and then I can draw over it. So that's what I use now. So a lot of my buildings and stuff are have been spawned from a 3D model.
That makes sense. It's a lot of shortcuts, and yeah, you definitely need that because it's like if you're spending like the amount of time that an artist spends on a page, you got to speed that up because you'll never complete the book.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like we need shortcuts. Like it's amazing when you can just do it by hand, but I mean, if you get the same result, then it doesn't matter. So let's just do it fast, you know?
Yeah. Well, one of the comic artists that I follow, Jason Fabok, what he did is he has like a Hot Toys Batman head that he actually uses for like perspective. In order how to get like the lighting on the head right.
Yeah, those are super useful for that. I actually haven't bought one. Like you think I would, but what I actually ended up doing, and this is part of like when I thought I was going to 3D animate this. I taught myself how to like sculpt and rig characters and all this stuff. And so I ended up making like these character rigs that I can change their body shape and, you know, make them taller or smaller. Like I can make them any age now. And so like I have these 3D models that that's what I use for a lot of my bases for characters. Not all the time, because sometimes it's faster just to draw it. But definitely for like the faces on the cover, like those are like tricky angles to make it look right. And so, yeah, I have, 3D models that I can twist around any angle I want and drop it in there. And then I know that structurally it's there, which is super handy because, under drawing faces can take a long time. And if you don't spend the time, then you notice it's off pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'm surprised I'm surprised more artists don't like have. I'm sure some do, but like they don't just like take action figures off their shelves and like arrange them in the actual poses that they're drawing, because you think that'd be really useful.
Yeah, that's I agree actually. Like I'm using 3D now, but like I think it's still a little slower than if I actually had some printed out. So that's like in the future when I have money, which whenever that happens, right? It's like I want to get these 3D printed, and so that I have like my figures that are like in the style that I draw, and that I could just pick it up and look at it, right? So, but yeah, I think it's incredibly useful.
That works. So let me ask you this: how many like books can you see this story going for?
Okay, yeah, good question. So the main arc is will be 10 comic issues, right?
Okay.
And that's kind of loose because I'm not really like limiting an issue to 24 pages.
True.
If I need 26 pages to tell the story, then like it'll be 26 pages. So I have outlined for essentially 5 volumes of this size. So this is basically like the first 2 chapters, and there's going to be essentially 10 chapters. But with that, I had to I don't want people to read it and then feel gypped, like they only got a fifth of the story, right? And so each one kind of has its own mini arc. So it's semi-episodic, but it should flow and read more like a book. So like you see the actual like plot building until the very end, but it's not like a TV series almost, right? So yeah, we've planned for. Sorry, go ahead.
So it's like if you wanted to say just by one issue, you have a complete story in your hands.
Yeah, exactly. So sense. Like you could read this and like be satisfied, like, but obviously there's more after it, And so so we've kind of planned it that way. But so for the arc, which I mean, I hope we get to finish it. That's why we're doing this whole campaign. But it will be essentially like 5 of these, right? And so that's what it's going to be. And I mean, depending on how well it does, there's still more stories I'd like to tell in that world. So I'd love to like branch off and do another arc after it. But that's all dependent on, how it's received by the audience and what the market demands. So if you demand it, let me know.
That's your. It very much annoys me whenever I'm like reading like a DC Comics thing, and they're like, the story continues next month, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, you're like, nothing happened.
I'm like, wait, people just sat around and ate cheese. I'm like, what? I'm reading a Superman comic, and there was no action in this issue. Like, what? That's like in like my issue with a lot of superhero shows nowadays is that they have episodes where nothing happens.
Oh yeah. You're like, come on, like what's going on?
For weeks and weeks, there are no action, and I'm like, this is a Superman TV show. Punch something.
I know, like we should be like action every episode. That's why we're watching. Yeah,
I had a bet with a buddy of mine when we were watching Superman and Lois because the recent season barely had any action. We were like, I bet you the last one's not going to have it, and then like it would have like punishments. Like he had to do a video on a topic he hated. I won. There wasn't any action, so I'm like. They saved it till the end because when you see the ending of it, you kind of get it because from a budgetary perspective. But it's like you don't see that immediately, so I'm like,
like your expectations are up here and they deliver down here.
They keep going down, and then finally they give you an epic intro. I'm like, you could have at least indicated that that's what you were gonna do because it's just
like
in a Superman
like, hey,
show. Exactly. It's like let's have a show about Halo and not have any action in it.
Yeah.
Hint, they did that.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. I watched one. What are you talking about, though?
So there was an episode. So you watched an episode of the Halo show.
Right. I don't know which show. Okay. So I've watched. What was it called? It was Unto Dawn. It was a movie.
That one's great. That one's great.
That one. Okay. So, I'm like, that was pretty good. I mean, that was good. The drama with the characters.
That one's fine.
They got to the action, right?
All right. So they did a TV show on Paramount Plus that was supposed to be
I
an
remember when this came out,
Elseworld.
actually. I
It
never
was an
watched it.
Elseworlds Halo story, and when you find out that because the way corporations use Elseworlds, it's like we're gonna tell stories, but we're not gonna care about the canon. So what they did is, so in a Halo show, you'd expect there to be action, right?
Yeah, that's the whole
All right,
game.
so when I think it's like 8 or 9 episodes, only 3 of them have had action that lasted for like 10 minutes. So in a 9-hour movie, essentially, you had a half hour of action.
Yeah, that's
And worse off, he took off his helmet 80 times in the show. So everyone's like, keep the damn helmet on, Chief.
They're like, he never takes it off.
He never takes it off. And they're like,
that's his thing.
My favorite is like the actor's like, well, you can't really identify with an actor if you don't like see their face. And I'm like, Mandalorian and Darth Vader would like to say hi, sir.
That's true. Like, it's been done. Also, there's something. This is kind of what like happens in manga, where like the main character is so generic that like anyone can identify to them. I think you kind of get that with a masked character too.
Yeah, and that was the point of the Master Chief. That's why his like actual name is John, and you don't see his face. You can imprint your. The problem with that is that the minute you take off that helmet, and this is why they've never really done in the games. I mean, that they've kind of teased it, but they've never actually done it, because you take away all of that identification that the player can look. It can say, "Hey, the Master Chief is me."
Yeah. Then it's not you anymore. It's some guy, you know. Yeah, I agree with that.
What they've done was good, because first off, they built up the aliens, and then the chief actually acted like the chief.
Yeah,
so I'm like, yeah, there you go. This is dope. I love that.
Yeah, that one was good for sure. But I like to just like sound off again with you on the like. I feel like it's a travesty that happens with comics, especially. Is you get like such a little bit of story in each issue, right? And so that's why I haven't like followed a lot of titles issue by issue, because I feel like nothing happens and it takes so long, So I usually wait until books come out, right?
Yeah,
so I can
the trade.
The whole thing.
Wait for the trade. Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that that this stands out, that it's not like, oh, well, that was issue 1, but I have to wait till issue 3 for anything to happen. So hopefully it's enjoyable the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. But the other issue is that they don't tell a complete story in one issue. That's the other problem, because it's like I'm reading this and I'm like, it just stops.
Yeah.
But I'm like, at least wrap up a story in a single issue.
Yeah, do some sort of arc. Like they lost their lunch and then they found it or something,
Yeah, or like Wonder Woman saved someone from falling out of a tree or something. At least give me something. But
yeah, something that like superhero-y.
Well, it's because you have a lot of writers that treat it like they're writing a novel, and instead of writing a superhero book. Like there's this one writer named Brian Michael Bendis, and he did a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man and stuff. He puts in so many word bubbles, it covers up the actual art.
Oh yeah, where it's just like you gotta pull back. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then it's like he's the one of the writers who writes for the trade. So you'll have you'll have issues going, nothing happened. How does this connect to the overall story you're telling me? And then granted, a lot of times with writers, they'll have at the end. So when you're reading it, you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But the problem is, at that point, people have dropped the book because nothing happens.
Yeah, like you need a hook at the beginning. Like you need to make promises and you need to drag them along the whole time, right? And yeah, there's this funny thing that you're right. Like with superhero comics, I expect it to be different than like a prose book, like something that'd be written, right? And at this point, you kind of have to abide by those expectations, or else you get, disgruntled fans, right? But then also, like, I feel like there is a disconnect between how, like, the strategies that, like, professional writers create stories in books and, like, movies and stuff, and comics. It's almost like they don't talk to each other. But I feel like stories are stories, and, like, they need to function, like, in the lives of the reader the same way. So once you kind of know what that is, then it's just fitting it into the medium. And, yeah, with comics, it's like, well, they need to talk a little bit less because there's a lot of pictures.
Yeah, it's not like I'm watching a movie where like essentially it goes by like that. It's like if I'm reading a comic book, particularly again in the superhero genre. And that's the problem with like recently a lot of comic books went more slice of life as opposed to like as opposed to like Superman punching someone. It has to be, let's go see what Lois and her son John are doing today. Oh, they're going to the park. And I'm like you just punching Metallo. Can I get more of the Metallo?
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh man, I've tried slice of life comics. I feel like I've tried to give everything a shot, and I cannot get into slice of life. I just get so bored. I'm like, man, this isn't why I come to comics. Like, I want something exciting. Like, I want something to explode. So
I want to see something I can't realistically do. I'm pretty sure I could sit at a table and eat a sandwich. I'm fairly certain I could do that.
That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing, speaking of like a disconnect, is really how the writers see fans, because I feel like now they see fans as like more of an impediment as opposed to they're paying your bills.
Like, that's who you're serving essentially, right? Like, if they don't want it, like, you don't make any money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have like some creators that will be like, well, this book isn't for you. Oh, you mean it's not for the paying audience?
Yeah, it's like and that was something I feel like a lot of creative people struggle with, especially artists. I mean, it's kind of the same with writers too. But like, because we feel like we need to create something new, something fresh, something that's like true to ourselves, or whatever that means, right? But we often forget that, like, there is no success artistically without the market, right? Without the fans who actually want it, and they have certain expectations, and we need to like meet those. But when you do it, like, that's what starts the conversation. Like, that's where it's fun. Where people can go, oh yeah, like, like I wanted some action and you did it this way, and that was really cool. Like, I didn't expect that to happen that way, but why did you do it that way instead of like this other way? And that's where like you really start to connect with people, and I think that's what like good stories should do.
Ruth says, I think also once you're invested in the character, you want to see how they develop going forward. Will you keep the main character going forward into the other issues?
Yes. Yeah. And I definitely hear that. I mean, I always get attached to like the original cast of anything, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be the same characters. So essentially, if I can like divulge a secret here. So this arc is diving more into like Jonas's life and his family and his dynamics with his city and the society there. The next one would essentially, we'd go more into Shino's life. So we'd go back to her family and kind of work things over on that side. So, I mean, it would develop the group, right? But we're still going to keep the same people that kind of run around and do their thing. So, yeah.
Plus, prequel stories are actually really good because when you when you return to like the more the more present day story, if you will, you have a more appreciation for how the character acts a certain way, because now you have the context as to why they would say this, why they would do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, this is something that I enjoy most from stories, I guess, is being able to like get into the character's head. And this is a tricky thing too, because like comics is like my medium, but you don't get the same kind of like, they call it navel gazing in writing sometimes, right? Where you just hear their thoughts. You don't get that as much in comics. I mean, they used to do it with like cloud balloons and stuff, and I'm not sure how well that functions with the medium, but I'm trying to kind of bring some of that back in, so we see how they're thinking and how that changes throughout the story, so that we understand them, right? And then we can develop that attachment to them. So,
yeah, that works. I myself have struggled with that with a project I'm working on, because it's like you want, because like to a degree you want to tell the audience what the character is thinking, because then it can like, it's like if they're solving a mystery, so that way the audience can like solve it with them and stuff. But then
Yeah.
it's like the problem with the way the big two used to do it is that there'd be so many thought balloons that again it would like bog down the reader and it'd become a novel essentially.
Yeah, and then you're just reading words, and that's not why we read comics.
No.
Yeah, so like we got to find a different way to do it, and yeah, I mean, I have ideas on how to do it, but it's just what's going to actually work. So yeah, that's something that I'm always trying to fiddle with in my stories, and I hope that comes across like in the reading of it, that it feels a little different, right, and that we connect a little bit more, and so that's what I'm hoping to get out of this.
And so tell us about any perks that are part of this campaign that you want to advertise.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So perks. Wow, my mind just blanked. Here, I have a cheat sheet. So I'm gonna look on my campaign page real quick.
There you go.
So the main things we're selling, I guess, we want to look at this more of like a partnership. That I mean, all of our backers are becoming part of our team to like just get this made, and so that we kind of work together. And so because of that, one of the things I'm most excited about is to offer like cameos for people who are interested in that kind of thing, which I can do because most of the pages aren't even drawn yet. And so people who like really want to be like ingrained in something and show their support for it, like I can literally draw them into the story, name characters, whatever, or have them pop in for a panel or two. I think that'd be really fun, to be able to do that with people, right? But we're definitely, so me that I'm looking forward to is just printing the actual book. Like it's like, I swear it's going to be one of the like best days of my life when I can like hold a book and it's finished and it's printed and it's beautiful and it's something I made and can just like hand to people. So that's like my goal for this. If nothing else, like if nothing else is enticing, just that you can actually hold this in your hand and keep it, right, and collect it. We are going to be doing prints of cover art. So prints of this cover art, as well as have friends and some other artists who are participating in making variant covers. So we're going to have several of those, which are really cool. It's been fun to see their take on the different the characters and their different styles. And we're doing things like we can donate some physical copies if you're feeling philanthropic. That's a big word. Anyway, then I mean, I would love to get high quality comics and stories to people wherever I can. So we're going to be donating some to like schools if they let us, but definitely like libraries, things like that. So that's a lot of the things. We have some stretch goals that I want to throw out. So if we exceed our goal, which I'm hoping we do, but we will see how it goes, then I'm going to add in more bonus stuff, like notes on my drawing process, detailing things out of how I actually work, and then doing posters of the cover art, and then like a map of the city, which I love it when books include maps, right? So
Me too. I'm one of those nerds. Like when I'm reading a book and all of a sudden it has these supplemental material, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, right. I'm like, I want to like print those big, they should be included in the book too, but like, I just want a big one that I can put on my wall,
Yeah, me too.
So we're going to be doing that. If we like way exceed it, so like our highest goal is, I'm going to prepare a 3D printing statue file of the two main characters, which I think would be super fun. Like I've never actually got something printed before, so it'd take a little work, but I mean, if we reach the goal, it's definitely something I would do. And I think it'd be really cool just to have, it's kind of a trophy for backers. So
that's actually not a bad idea. I'm like, wow.
That'd be cool. Oh, and of course, we expect to have t-shirts coming as well. And so I've worked with the printer here, and so they're going to be comfy because that's my stipulation. Like I hate the like promo shirts you get, and they're just like not comfortable. So these ones will be. I've tested them. So
sweet. So to conclude, the last question I have for you is that what would you say is like the best piece of advice that you can give like an up and coming comic book artist, writer, etc.?
Yeah, that's it's a hard thing to ask because it's so like it so depends on where they are. But if I were to give, what I would think of like the best guiding principle that's helped me is it's almost marketing, basically. It's like, and it's kind of ties into what we've been talking about, really. But it's like understand like what your audience wants and needs, like in whatever you're making. So I guess if it's comics, it's what do they want from a comic in general, like from a story. What do they get? Like the reason that they go to stories emotionally, and learn how to deliver that. And so for me, that was learning more writing techniques and different kinds of story structures and strategies to make sure that it's a fulfilling story, right? But I feel like that's like what we do as creators is we deliver our own vision that satisfies the viewer's need. And so for a story like this, sometimes we just want something intriguing that just captures our attention, and we want a little bit of romance, a little bit of action. We want some magic, something just to explode or whatever, and so and then you need to be able to deliver that. I see a lot of times creators get hung up on like world building and they just like get stuck there and never make their thing, right? Or I see some people like they rush into starting but they don't know where they're going after that. And so they're like, I know I want to get here, but I don't know what happens in between. And so a lot of that is just learning your craft, right? But learning your craft with the intention to fulfill your audience's need. I feel like if you can do that, then like you have purpose and you have direction and things kind of fall into place after that. Still a lot of work, but like you at least know it's going to pay off.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I would add to that is like also be able to take criticism from people, because here's the thing. As long as you're proud of the project, it really doesn't matter what other people say, because as long as you can show up and say, you know what, I put my heart into this project.
Yeah, that's a big thing for sure. So yeah, like even though like I know people are going to be like, hey, you should have done this in color, I'd be like, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. It was like this is so much closer to like my vision of what I wanted to do, and like I'm willing to bet that it's going to resonate with people.
Well, plus here's the thing: it's unique because it's black and white. That's the
true.
Key thing there. I'm like, because that is it's kind of, I wouldn't call it a problem, but actually, yeah,
it's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem for people trying to get into the industry, because this industry has existed since like even before Superman was invented. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that's been done already. So we have to find ways to like differentiate it, and like black and white works.
Yeah, right. They're gonna pick it up and be like, "Oh, they didn't finish it. I forgot to color this." And I'm like, "Oh, well, it's actually done."
Or if you want to get another copy, you can color it. So there you go.
Yeah, that's true. Like it doubles as a coloring book.
There you go. That would work really well. So, Javen, where can one find you and support you?
All right. So the biggest thing is on my website, javenmorrisart.com. I believe you linked to that.
There you go.
So it's under the projects tab, and right now it's Brewed Blood is our big push right now. Other than that, Instagram is going to be the best place to get updates and things, and it's just at Javen Morris Art is where I'm at there. But definitely, if you're interested in this book and this project, and you want like a front row seat to when it launches, sign up with your email, and you will get notifications on how that all pans out and all the special offers that we want to give people who really want to dive into this stuff.
Sweet. And all the links will be in the description below. And Javen, was a pleasure to have you on the show, and you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you very much. Always awesome. It was a privilege for sure. I appreciate all the questions, and it was fun to be able to talk about this.
Anytime. All right. So everyone, stay heroic, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.